One of the best ways to gauge where inflation is heading is by tracking the relationship between the crude oil prices and the US Consumer Price Index. If we take a moment to observe their movement from the 1980s to today, we can see that they have generally moved in tandem. The years of their peaks and trough are in synchronization, not just the recent years, but throughout their history. So I'm interested to find out who is leading who. Is it the inflation data that drive the crude oil prices higher or lower? Or is it the other way? It is the crude oil prices that influence the inflation trend. My name is Kon Hao. My work in this channel is to study behavior science and finance, discover correlation between different markets, and uncover potential opportunities. This analysis is based on technical studies and does not constitute financial advice. Please consult your licensed broker before investing. Why is this relationship important? Because if we can anticipate where the inflation is heading, we will also able to project the direction of interest rates. For example, with a higher crude oil prices, inflation tend to increase as well. This often leads to the Federal Reserve to hold or even raise interest rates. And if we happen to be in a decision making in taking up a loan, either for business or housing, such an outlook can guide our decision better. Of course, a higher or lower rates will also affect the stock markets as well. And that is why the current sentiment expecting the Fed to continue to easing rates, we are seeing a record high in the stock prices. And let's go back to this pie chart that derive the CPI and try to understand why rising crude oil prices have such a significant impact on inflation trend. Because literally all the components that we're seeing here that make up the CPI data that we read about them each month require fuel for delivery. The three largest portion are the food and beverage, that each step in the supply chain requires transportation, which depends on fuel. Housing is material. Each stage of production and delivery involve fuel usage. And transportation itself, this sector directly powered by fuel. A tutorial that we discussed this year in June, that how I uses this parallel channel as a guide on how I plan my crude oil position. But the question is, why on such a trending phenomena? With the central bank's annual inflation target at about 2%, we can see how steadily the crude oil has been trending upwards over the decades. And one of the central bank's main responsibility is to ensure that inflation does not rise significantly above its target at 2%. And there are some new development here. As of 22nd October, new sanctions were imposed on two major oil companies, causing the oil prices to surge by more than 10% just the past few days. And let's look at the monthly chart here. Let me just zoom in a little bit. Now, if the month chart closed around at this level or slightly higher, it will form a potential reversal pattern, and most of us were able to recognize that it could be a potential hammer. And this will increase a likelihood of a breakout above this long-term consolidation. So this was the parallel channel that we spoke about on the yearly chart. So this is my anticipation. It may have some resistance here or may not. I think what we can see here is that over the span of the last few years, the range are getting tighter and tighter. It also represents that maybe it's time to break below or above, but I would reckon that based on the current macro development, the chance of breaking out higher is likely the case. And if the crude oil ever starts trending much higher, the CPI will follow. I hope this tutorial will help you to plan your other trades and investment more effectively. And let me try to overlay it with gold. Now, can you see that how they've been moving in tandem between the gold, CPI, and the crude oil prices? But it also appeared to me that the gold has been leading the rest since 2022. Now, the question is, will the other follow? I'd love to hear your thoughts on this. Feel free to leave any comments below. I love to exchange ideas with you on what is about to come. Really happy that stay through this tutorial. You have many great trading weeks ahead.